Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Slow Customs. And in today's episode, we'll be on my sandwich and the Flying Scotsman. First, we're gonna do sandwich first, but I have a feeling I know why everyone's here. Anyway, so Sandwich really isn't a canon character in any of the TV series or the Railway series. But I purely made Sandwich just for the fun of it because, I mean, why wouldn't it be fun to have a locomotive named Sandwich? This is basically just another papyrus situation where I just made it for shits and giggles. But yeah, so Sandwich is obviously made out of another Gordon, another 2002 Gordon actually. I'm gonna move Scotsman out of the way because he keeps rolling down. Because my set is on a little bit of a tilt. Anyway, so this was just made out of a standard Gordon. Now, the livery I gave him was a LNER freight livery. You might recognize this livery from another engine. Let me just grab him here. And that engine would be Quincy. As you can see, the livery is pretty much the same because everyone tends to make the A3s a passenger locomotive, and while they are best suited for that, there were a few freight A3s and A4s, A3s and A1s. So I decided to make Sandwich a freight engine. So that's why I decided to give him this livery with the black and red. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good. It's a little simple, but otherwise it's pretty nice actually. So the Gordon was just painted in my standard black with red linen. Now the red is what I use for all my buffer beams, all my red engines basically, so very popular red for me. So that was just linen. I copied the A3 running board detail just because. I gave him smoke deflectors, kind of like Scotsman, just because he looked a little weird without them. And the face, you can probably see, is a Trackmaster Scarlowy face. I decided to use that face because I wanted to give Sandwich a face that looked different without reusing another Gordon face. So the Trackmaster Scarlowy face was the perfect size for the Gordon, so I just popped it off of the smoke box and used it for Sandwich, as you can see there. He's also got a painted buffer beam there, pretty simple. His nameplate Sandwich is basically the same as every other nameplate I've made for each of my A3s. So yeah, he's got his original number there, 2504, because in my headcanon, Sandwich, because he was a freight locomotive, his documentation and overall care wasn't too looked on, so there was a bit of a mix-up when he was transferred, or not transferred, given a different livery, where the painters gave him his original number, so yeah. Now his tender, I'll move Sandwich out of the way here, make sure he doesn't roll. His tender is supposed to look like the original tenders that every A3 and A1 had on the Great Northern. Reason I made this tender is, one, I didn't really want to make another LNAR corridor type tender, and two, I did want some variation. And in my headcanon, he was never given a different tender. He always had the GNR tender. So I think I replicated that nicely. Otherwise, it has just LNER on the side of it, because it's the LNER freight livery. With red linen, so buffer beam at the back, pretty simple. Here's this side, and what I basically had to do is just move the coal load further, that way I gave space for the water cap there. That's also just a Lego stud. I've used a few of them now, but yeah, so that'll be my Sandwich. I think it looks pretty nice. I don't know if he'll appear in my series too often. He might appear in maybe a special thing where Thomas goes to York or something. So yeah, that'll be Sandwich. I really like how he came out, and I'm finally glad I'm able to make him, because he's been on the back burner for pretty much forever. Anyway, here is my flying Scotsman. Now, he might look very similar to Papyrus, and that's pretty much because he is. Because I decided to give him this kind of livery. I know this apple green may not be the best and most accurate, but it's all I really had at the moment. So it's basically the same green, same livery as Papyrus, just obviously has a face and differences. So yeah. Like Papyrus, he was made out of a Henry with a swapped out firebox. Now his firebox here, I did have to scratch make this one a little bit more because I messed up on how I cut the original firebox for Papyrus. I had accidentally cut just the bunker off of the Thomas instead of the bunker and the bottom foot plate. So that's why his firebox here looks a little different, and it looks a little more like based at the bottom. So yeah, otherwise I don't think it's too bad. So yeah, same kind of livery as Papyrus, not much to say there. The lining is a little bit messier at the top, a little bit. I might go back and fix that a little bit more, but yeah. His nameplate, Flying Scotsman, that's just the original nameplate that I had used as a template for the other nameplates here. So I figured I might as well just use that one as it was already scaled. So I just used it. Excuse me. I gave him his number 4472. I know some people don't do it as it already is on his water tender, which I'll get to in a moment, but I decided to give him on his cab just so I can run Scotsman without his water tender. And I basically made this Scotsman to basically make a better Scotsman, and so I don't have to use the three-wheeled tender that the wooden one has. So, yeah. His face is the 2003 Gordon face. Now, I decided to give him this face because eventually I want to get the 2013-2012 Gordon, like the CGI one, and use that as my Gordon, just because I do think it looks a lot better compared to every other Gordon there is. Like, I really do like the 2003 Gordons, but with the Flying Thistle and Scotsman having this face, it will look kind of weird. So yeah, this will be Scotsman's permanent face. The smoke deflectors, I did make them a little bit bigger. That way, they just look okay proportionately, and they actually are pretty straight. I was able to straighten them out, which is nice. I originally thought about making the smoke deflectors detachable to give him his America Tour livery with like a removable cow catcher and headlamp and bell thing, but I decided against it. There's also a white outline on his buffer beam. I did that for Papyrus too, once I finished Scotsman, so yeah. He doesn't have his banjo boiler, or god damn it, I said it again. He doesn't have his banjo dome like he usually has on his rebuild, just because, one, I was lazy and didn't want to do it, and two, I think he looks better without the banjo dome. So I just kind of left it like that. Same kind of cab lining, pretty simple, white rims. So yeah. Now here's his tender. It's pretty simple. It's just basically Papyrus's tender, just copied over. Unintentionally, the tender I'd used for Scotsman is actually thinner than Papyrus's tender. So when I put it up against it, it looked a little weird. So all I really had to do is just thin down the side pieces here, or the side pieces, just so they fit the tender scale better. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good behind Scotsman. Like, that looks pretty good. Otherwise, it's the same lining, pretty much. There is a corridor piece at the back there, just like Isle of Sodor's tender, just so I can give it a little more accuracy. And if I don't want to give him this kind of tender with a corridor, I can just switch it out with Papyrus's in the future. So that's pretty nice. Otherwise, just another Lego piece for water cap. Coal was moved forward, and yeah. I was lucky, and I had spare black wheels that I just switched out with the Gordon tender wheels. Instead of the blue and painted over them with black like I did with Sandwich, I'm able to actually run Scotsman without chipping his wheels, which is really nice. These are actually Donald tender wheels, so I had a really beat up tender extra thing, so I stole the wheels from that. Anyway, so now we have his water tender. Now his water tender is kind of the same build as his main tender. It was made skinnier just because I had used a Henry tender as the base for it, which actually works because it's green underneath. But all I had to do was cut out a cut out a similar cardboard piece there, and for each end, and put paper over top of it. It was a bit of a thicker paper, but all I did was I put it over top. I had glued it to the sides, that way it stayed on, and then I went over it with masking tape. That way it really kept it in place, and I was able to make sure that the paint, the black paint, did not bleed through. So that's why there are lines here, because those are multiple strips of tape that were put across the tender there. I probably would have done the same thing for my Isle of Sodor, but I didn't honestly think about that. I'll move Sandwich out of the way and put Scotsman here. Yeah. But yeah. Same thing with the corridor piece on the front and back of the tender. Real nice. With a buffer beam at the bottom. So, yeah. The 4472 actually looks pretty good on this side. I think I spaced it out, like, really good compared to the L and ER on the sides of the tender. Like this side, it's a little more not so spaced out, and the 4s could be better, but you won't see this side too much, so that's good. Same kind of detail on the top as Isle of Sodor's tender, just to give a little more detail to like the bands on top of the water tenders that were there. So yeah. This was a custom built chassis. All I did was I took a circus train chassis, cut it down the center, and basically tried my best to match up the wheels. And they're also black, so they won't chip, which is really nice. So here's what kind of Scotsman looks like with his tenders together. I'll move the buffer piece here. That way you guys can really see what he looks like. I did take another picture with him for Twitter, and if you want to go see it, just find me on Twitter. So I'm just going to switch out a few pieces here. That way you guys can see what he looks like with his tender, or with his 2 tenders. So yeah, I think he looks real nice, to be honest with you. Like, just the complete train, or like complete setup kind of thing, it just looks so good. I'm doing this so he doesn't roll. But yeah, I'm really proud with how Scotsman came out. Oh, same with the same kind of cutout thing with the nameplate there. Sorry. So yeah, I'm really proud of this too. So yeah, I think that will be my my last 2 actually. That'll be my last 2 A3s. I don't plan to make any more in the future, as 1, that's a lot of Gordons, and 2, I don't really have a need for any more A3s, A4s, or sorry, not A4s, A3s and A1s. As much as I would like a complete A family, there were like 73 of them, so that's too many Gordons for me. So I think for now, unless I decide to make an A3 OC, that'll be my final A's. So it's real nice. I definitely now have a good Grizzly family collection, so I still have to make the rest of the A4s, so that's nice. So yeah, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this custom, or these customs. I'll probably live stream maybe later tonight, I don't know, depending on when this comes out, but Yeah, anyway. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.